This class is about the post-emancipation African American experience. It is about American history. And I hope that point is frankly very obvious, but one never quite understands or can anticipate all of these things. It is about American history fundamentally. At its core, the course is about citizenship, the most important keyword for the entire class. The course is about citizenship, how one becomes a citizen, what one does to preserve that citizenship. At its core then, the class asks the question, what does it mean to be American? Now I will ask this question explicitly a few times in the class, but it implicitly is woven through so much of what I'm going to be talking about. What does it mean to be American? Let me remind you what we had started to talk about. The class is organized into 3 fairly specific topics. The first of which is extrasolar planets. Planets around stars other than the Sun. Exoplanets, so called. That's our topic. One of the things that I pointed out last time is that, surprisingly enough, until 10 years ago none of these were known. And it's only a very recent development that there's any actual evidence that these things exist. So, one question you might ask is why are these things so hard to find? The science fiction folks seem to have no trouble, they just sort of go around in their spaceships and find these things all over the place. And to consider that question, let me show you a picture. Here's a picture of a star. This is the star Sirius. It's the brightest. It's a blow-up obviously of a photograph plus a little photoshopped arrow. That's not a celestial object, so, this is a blow-up of a photograph of the star Sirius. Sirius is the brightest star in the sky to the easily visible with the naked eye. In fact, as I say, the brightest star. It's one of the closest stars. It's a little bit brighter than the Sun intrinsically, but it's 10 light-years away or so. Let me go to Hemingway and talk a little bit about him, in many ways as a kind of gateway or a guide to a global vision of American literature. Hemingway was very much a world traveler. Basically, you can get a map of the world by just looking at his writings, but he had a special love of the Spanish language. So for whom the bell tolls, we'll be reading this in class is about the Spanish Civil War. And Hemingway was there as a war correspondent, but we can see that he actually got into combat situations right here. It's really interesting to think about Hemingway as both a journalist and also a novelist. The global dimension of Hemingway, but also the global dimension of the Spanish Civil War itself. It was a civil war, it was between two sides fighting in Spain, but it was also very much an international war in the sense that Russia was a part of it, Germany was a part of it, Italy was a part of it. It very much was a gathering of a lot of nations converging on the soil of Spain and fighting.
But Aristotle says the reason we need rhetoric is we have to be able to use it. To use rhetoric influence the ramble. We try to get them to understand truth. Truth is suggest. It's different than rhetoric. Rhetoric is the dressing, is the body, right? Truth is the spirit, is the soul, is abstract. It doesn't have a body. It's not particular. If you want to get somebody to the truth, you might have to use some kind of tricks, right? Because most of people are not sound and can see the truth. That's what we think. Most people are rambles, really. Only the educated, the erudite, are actually capable of seeing the truth. If you want to get the general mass there, you may have to do a little bit. So Aristotle, that is rhetoric. Rhetoric is something that is used to influence people, right? And it's kind of mentally promised a logic.
Welsh is a Celtic language spoken in Wales by about 740,000 people, and in the Welsh colony in Patagonia, Argentina by several hundred people. There are also Welsh speakers in England, Scotland, Canada, the USA, Australia and New Zealand. At the beginning of the 20th century, about half of the population of Wales spoke Welsh as an everyday language. Towards the end of the century, the proportion of Welsh speakers had fallen to about 20%. According to the 2001 census, 582,368 people can speak Welsh, 659,301 people can either speak, read or write Welsh, and 797,717 people 28% of the population claim to have some knowledge of the language. According to a survey carried out by S4C, the Welsh language TV channel, the number of Welsh speakers in Wales is around 750,000, and about 1.5 million people can understand Welsh. In addition, there are an estimated 133,000 Welsh speakers living in England, about 50,000 of them in the Greater London area.
The old typewriter, with its nostalgic charm and clattering keys, represents a bygone era of communication and creativity. Invented in the late 19th century, this mechanical marvel revolutionized the way people put their thoughts on paper. Each keystroke required a deliberate press, producing a satisfying click as the type bar struck the paper. The tangible effort it demanded made every document a labor of love. Writers, journalists, and secretaries relied on these machines for decades, churning out manuscripts, articles, and letters with precision and character. The old typewriter is not merely a relic of technology, but a symbol of perseverance and craftsmanship. Its imperfections added character to documents, showcasing the human touch behind the words. The rhythmic symphony of keys and carriage return offered a unique sensory experience, one that modern keyboards can never replicate.
Paper waste can be both good and bad depending on how it's managed. On the negative side, excessive paper waste is detrimental to the environment. It leads to deforestation, as more trees are cut down to produce paper. Additionally, the manufacturing process consumes substantial energy and water resources, contributing to pollution and climate change. However, paper waste can also have positive aspects. Recycling paper reduces the need for fresh pulp, which in turn conserves forests and reduces energy consumption. Furthermore, recycled paper can be turned into various products, minimizing the demand for virgin materials. Ultimately, the key lies in responsible management. Minimizing paper waste through digitalization and efficient printing practices is essential. Recycling paper and opting for sustainably sourced or recycled paper products can help mitigate its negative impact. In conclusion, paper waste is bad when it's excessive and not managed properly, but it can be good when efforts are made to reduce, reuse, and recycle it, thereby lessening its environmental footprint.
A rich dad and a poor dad represent two different approaches to life and finances, often immortalized in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich dad is characterized by his financial savvy and entrepreneurial spirit. He values financial education, investing, and creating assets that generate passive income. This approach aims for financial independence and wealth accumulation, emphasizing the importance of taking calculated risks. On the other hand, the poor dad adheres to traditional beliefs about money. He prioritizes job security, savings, and frugality. While these principles can provide stability, they may not lead to substantial wealth. The poor dad often avoids financial risks and is content with a steady income, which can limit financial growth. The contrasting philosophies of the rich dad and poor dad serve as a powerful lesson in financial literacy. They highlight the significance of financial education and making informed decisions about money. Ultimately, individuals can learn valuable lessons from both perspectives, combining the strengths of each to build a secure and prosperous financial future.
The increase in Earth's temperature, commonly referred to as global warming, is a pressing environmental issue with far-reaching consequences. This phenomenon primarily results from the enhanced greenhouse effect caused by the release of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, and nitrous oxide, N2O, into the atmosphere, mainly due to human activities. The consequences of rising global temperatures are numerous and severe. They include more frequent and severe heat waves, melting ice caps and glaciers, sea level rise, altered weather patterns, and an increased frequency of extreme weather events such as hurricanes and droughts. These changes have far-reaching impacts on ecosystems, human health, agriculture, and economies. Mitigating global temperature rise requires a concerted effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through measures like transitioning to renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and adopting sustainable land use practices. International cooperation and individual actions are crucial in addressing this urgent global challenge and ensuring a more sustainable future for our planet.
Corruption remains a persistent challenge in the United States, undermining public trust in government institutions and eroding the foundations of democracy. While not as rampant as in some other nations, instances of corruption still exist at various levels. High-profile cases involving politicians, public officials, and corporations have highlighted the issue. Campaign financing is a significant concern, with dark money and corporate donations influencing policies and decisions. Lobbying also raises questions about undue influence on legislation. In some states, there have been allegations of voter suppression and gerrymandering, further raising concerns about the integrity of the political process. Instances of police misconduct, particularly cases of excessive use of force and racial profiling, have sparked protests and calls for reform. Additionally, corruption within law enforcement agencies can hinder efforts to ensure justice and accountability. Efforts to combat corruption include increased transparency, campaign finance reform, and stronger ethics enforcement. However, addressing this complex issue requires ongoing vigilance and commitment to upholding the principles of transparency, accountability, and fairness in governance.